One of the biggest mistakes people make is treating their recovery days like they're just a day off. Those days in between your workouts are there to make sure that you can address imbalances that might be popping up, try and target those muscle groups that you aren't hitting in your main workouts, and make sure that your performance is going to be as good as possible by the time you come back for your next session. Most of my active recovery exercises end up focused around my shoulders and around my core. Mobile, healthy scapular movement is a big part of any pulling or pushing exercises. These parallel bar scapular shrug variations are awesome ways to try and get as much scapular movement as possible, helping that glide of the scapula on the rib cage and trying to isolate the muscles that move these around. I don't actually do a whole lot of stretching because I like to try and implement some full range of motion and lengthened work into my main training programs where I can actually work on those ranges under load, but I do like to try and work on a little bit of pec and lat and rotator cuff stretching sometimes on these recovery days because they are some muscles that I know I've had tightness in before and that have been implicated in some little shoulder niggles I've had previously. Pain, injuries, and bottlenecks in your performance start to pop up when the smaller muscle groups that support your main movements start to fall behind the bigger muscles that you target more often. For the shoulders, some of these scapular muscles, particularly the lower trapezius, are one of the most common ones that I find on myself and on many of my clients that tend to fall behind and start to cause them issues. I love this lower trap arm raise variation, working on squeezing that shoulder blade back and down as hard as possible every rep, which gives you more stability and support in any overhead movements like handstand push-ups and even better engagement out of the bottom of a pull-up. Mixing in a good amount of varied rotator cuff work is a bit of a no-brainer if you're someone who's serious about your pushing strength in particular. I do different variations of these using weights, bands, and today I'm using rings for some abducted external rotations. They look kind of like a ring face pull, but you try to keep your elbow out to the side fixed and just focus on rotation, pulling your hand back as far as you can next to your head. You'll hear some people recommend not even bothering to train core directly because it gets hit with so many other compound movements, particularly with bodyweight training, but this is one of the best ways to make sure that those core muscles that you never target directly end up falling behind and becoming either an injury risk or a bottleneck in your training because they become the weak link in support when you're trying to do some of those bigger, harder whole body movements. Hanging variations are probably my favorite for core because they allow you to focus on perfect pelvic control, not under any compressive load where you're actually decompressing your lower spine at the same time. And if you use your breathing like I'm doing here, where you relax on the inhale and then focus on a good quality slow contraction on the exhale, you get to train all those vital core muscles that are involved in breathing and deep stabilization of your spine that connect fascially all the way through the shoulders and arms to the grip on the bar so that you can train that whole body connection that you need for any heavier whole body movements. Remember, one of the biggest goals of your recovery day is trying to prime yourself so that you can come back for next session and perform as best as possible. So you don't want to be doing high rep sets, you don't want to be gassing yourself out, you don't want to be using muscle groups that you're not interested in. Keep the contractions and the reps slow and controlled, keep the form tight. Pick a variation that's hard enough that you can only do a few reps of so that you're not doing unnecessarily high rep sets that cause you more burn, cause you more muscle damage, and make you carry more fatigue into your next session. Even if you're someone not working too hard on compressive strength or working towards exercises like V or I sits on the bars, trying to fit in some seated compressions like this is an awesome way to both target the abs but also get in some hamstring flexibility training by actively lengthening them so that you don't have to spend all that extra time sitting there passively stretching on your recovery days as well. I always like to fit in one variation of a core exercise that targets more of the deeper layer of the abs called the transversus abdominis. This muscle is involved particularly in protecting the spine and bracing your core. It actually kicks in before any other muscle in the body with almost any movement because it's so integral for stability for any movement in the body. You can target this by taking almost any other core exercise, preferably isometric because this is a stabilizing muscle that's supposed to hold your spine still, and then while you're performing that hold, performing deep breaths and on the exhale, trying to suck your stomach in as close to your spine as you can. With so many skills and exercises to pursue in calisthenics, I'm almost always trying to fit in some greasing the groove style training as well. What this looks like is picking a movement that you don't perform on your other main exercise days and performing lots of sets of it with lots of rest at a low intensity. For me at the moment, this is supinated planche leans on the parallettes, where I perform about 5 to 10 sets a day, but these sets are low intensity, meaning that I pick a lean variation that I could probably hold for about 10 to 15 seconds max. I only hold it for about 5 to 7 seconds and then get up, rest for at least 10 to 15 minutes before coming back again to perform another low intensity set. The beauty of this for your recovery days is that the low intensity means that the muscle damage is very low, your fatigue is very low, so it shouldn't affect your next workout much at all, and you're getting in lots of time through the high number of sets where you can practice the neurological strength aspect, where you train your brain how to just feel out the movement and build up that volume of training time on those movements that you might not be able to fit in on those other main training days. All of this movement might seem like a lot, but if you do it well, execute the reps properly, don't overdo the volume, it'll actually enhance your recovery by giving the joints the load that they need to bring blood flow and nutrients to them and make sure they're not just sitting still on these off days. This is essentially enhancing your passive recovery that's going on in the background at the same time, which is also something that you need to make sure is happening by keeping your nutrition and your sleep dialed in as well. It's easy to feel like a non-training day doesn't need the type of fuel that you might need on a training day, but the training days are what stimulates the change that you're going to actually make on those recovery days where your muscles are repairing, regrowing, and then becoming back stronger for that next session. At least a couple times a week, I'll also try and get in my infrared sauna as well and try and just add that little bit of extra push to that passive recovery. And I'm lucky enough to have a quality red light panel as well. That also helps speed up that muscle recovery, reduce that post-workout soreness, and encourage some connective tissue healing around my joints. These days never feel as important as your training days do, but as soon as you start to realize what your training looks like when you come in under-recovered, underperform, and then don't get the benefits that you want out of all that work you're trying to put in, you realize the value of your recovery days, because they're where the adaptations and the changes are actually taking place that lead to the long-term progress that you're after in the first place. I fit in calculated recovery days with all my online programs, and for my one-on-one clients, I work with them in their schedules and what's available to them to work out how to get the most out of these days in between their training to keep their progress going as fast as possible.